we have created again one of the CRUD operations. So we're done with the R part or the data retrieval. So now let's do the creation. So of course, there will be additional templates that we needed to do or use. So let's do that. So go back to our code. So here, so one thing is, of course, first we needed to create our new template. So just go to the template and then new file. And then I'll be saving mine as add student form. Or add student, I think is enough, .html. So here we'll be creating our form for our for our HTML, okay? Or for our add student. So I'll be using HTML5 as well. So here we can create our form. Let's start, of course, by creating a form. So we can choose either a get or a post. But again, once there are no declared methods, it is automatic by the form to use the get method, okay? Now, what are the details that we need? Or let's say for student number, I'll be using input type number. So we need to provide a name, much like what you had on PHP. Name is being used as a reference on your requests on either post super global, get super global, or even the request super global. So I think we no longer needed an ID unless it's beneficial for us. So we can remove that part. Name, I will name this as the same name of my attribute on my student class. So I can reduce the confusion on my mind that it serves that purpose. Okay. Then let's add a breaking space to have a vertical display. Now let's have for the first name, sorry for the typo, first name. Then I'll be using here input type text because we were asking for letters or whatnot. So name the same name as our attribute. So I'll be removing ID as well. Then add a break. If you want to add some placeholders, you can. Then last name. Input type text as well. I don't know why I did not just replicated the one at the top. Anyways, then let's add a break. And then of course, do not forget our button. Okay. So I'll be using input type submit. So the value, I'll say save record. Then do not forget to save our form. So currently we just created the form as typical as what you should be doing on your simple HTML class, okay? So we'll give life to this later on because as of now, we do not have any actions yet. Remember the purpose of action in a form. It tells us where should the form proceed after submitting the data that has been provided, okay? So first and foremost, we needed to create a view. Since this is a template, we need to create a view which allows us to visit this web page or this HTML file. So let's proceed to the views. Now let's create our view. So let's say my view is add student form. Do not forget the request. This is default. Then let's call our template. Remember, we are trying to make this templated. We have the template, we have the context, and then we return the rendered template. Okay. So my template is add student.html. Okay. Do we need anything from the model? So for now, I think we do not. So we can skip that part. We can now proceed to the context, the data that will be passing to our HTML file. So typically, since that is a form where the users will be the ones to enter value, so there's so much data that we needed to pass. But to not leave this empty, but to not leave this empty, we can provide a title for the form. And then let's call this as add student form. And then we can now return the render. We can render our templates. Okay. Then, since we saw this on our form, we can actually modify this and then replace this with title. Okay. Now going back to the view, again, there should be an equivalent URL for this. So let's proceed to the URLs. Don't forget the name of your view. So URLs, let's add a path. So I'll call this as add students, just for the path. Then for the view, we need the add student form. Now, one thing here is, since let's say the student is already the form is already created, now we can visit it by the path add student. So let's try that one. By the way, I have not closed my server yet, so I think it's still accessible. So I could have here add students. So we have here our form, but the problem here is we need to type the address here, which is not that suitable for end users. So what should we do if we want something clickable? Then we can navigate to that specific form. Of course, we need to modify a few on our index. So let's go there first. I think it's the index that we needed to modify. Okay. So before that, we need to adjust something on our patterns as well. So if you want that your URL patterns or each path is accessible to other HTML files or whatnot, we needed to provide a name. Okay, that name allows us to reference your path to other locations. So I will call this as add student form. Okay, now to secure our index as well, I'll be providing a name to our index because later I think this will be useful on our end. Okay, it's not necessary to have your route and name to be the same. Okay, it's not necessary. Route allows us to navigate. Okay, name allows us to reference. Okay, that's the difference. Now, be mindful of the name because we need this. Proceed on your index.html. Then let's just add a button here or even a simple link. I think I'll be using an anchor element. So, sorry. Let me just separate this. Now, how can we navigate from this file to your views? Okay. Remember, by following MTV, we cannot allow template to template communication. It should always pass to a view. So since we already have a view for that, how do we call that view? So here we use this delimiter, the one with the percentages. Then we use the URL. Okay, URL allows us to provide navigations within using our paths created. So on this part, the one that we needed to reference again is the name of your path, not the route. Okay, it's the name. So here we provide the name add student form. Make sure the spelling is correct. Add student form. Okay, then let's just save this. Let's just add, sorry, some text because we needed to see. Add student record. So I'll have this. Now let's go back to our website, then reload this one. So we have here our button. Now if we click this one, so we are now on our form. Okay. Now here's one thing. when we're here on this part, when we don't want to save records, we don't have any like a go back feature. So let's add one. So proceed on add student. Okay. So I'll be adding a cancel after the form. So here I'll just the link as well. It's the same as early. So an anchor element, and then go back. Then let's use the delimiter with the percentages because we're using a keyword which is URL, and then we'll be proceeding back to index. As I've said, it will be useful for us, right? So save this, and then click this one, and then go back. So at least we have a proper navigation by doing some links, or you can change these to buttons, not directly changing our URLs or just pressing the default back and previous and next pages of our browser. Okay. Now, what we wanted is for this to function. We wanted to save whatever the user types here once the save record button is clicked. So how do we do that? Of course, we needed another views and paths as well. We no longer need to create a template, okay? The template is this one. It's the form. What we needed is a view that will process the saving of the data. So let's go back to the code. I think we're good with our forms for now. So let's proceed here with the views, okay? Now let's create our view to save the data, okay? So I'll be calling that as save student. So it's up to you what you wanted to name it, but mine, I'll call it as save student. Then do not forget the requests. Then, do we need a template? No. Do we need the context? No, because we are not rendering a template, okay? We are not rendering a template to display. What we needed is to save the data coming from the user input to our model. So by that idea, we need to create an instance of our class student. Remember, student is a class. So how do we create an instance? Just simply by creating an object. Let's say I'll be naming mine as student equal models dot the name of my class. No arguments because we do not have a constructor. And then we call the attributes. Okay, so student dot student number. Okay, then how can we get the values inputted by the user? So one thing that you need to remember first is the method used by the form. Okay, that is crucial. So typically, if we go back to our form, this is our form. We don't have any methods, as I've mentioned earlier, or what has been taught to you during your HTML or PHP lessons. The default method is always get. Should there be no declared method, that is always get. On our case, no methods declared, so we'll be using get method, HTTP method, okay? So here, we'll now be using the request because this one gets all the past values. So request dot the method that the form used, which is get. And then, much like what you had on your PHP, remember, get and post are both associative arrays, as we call it on PHP. Here, they are dictionaries. So get and then the name of the element. So here I have student number, first name, and then last name. So we'll be calling that here as well, student number. Okay. I'll be replicating this for a quicker typing, first name and then last name. Okay, so we got all three inputs that we needed. So one thing that we should not forget to do is, of course, to save the changes. Okay. Now, what happens after saving? Since there are no templates on this view, the user will not see anything, right? So we don't want that. So the best idea, after saving, we can redirect, right? We can redirect our user to the index file where everything is displayed. So there we could see the inputted or the added data will be displayed as well. So to do that, we'll be importing new functions. So since we're no longer using HTTP response, we can disregard this, but we need to import HTTP response redirect. Okay. HTTP response redirect allows us to redirect to a different location. Now we will also import from Django URLs. We need to import reverse. Okay. Reverse allows us, reverse is a function. HTTP response redirect is a class. So reverse function allows us to navigate to any view existing on our application. Okay. So we'll be returning that. Just want to separate the return anyways. HTTP response redirect. Now, where should we be redirected? So we'll be using reverse here. Reverse now will look for a view name. By the way, view name. Okay, be corrected. It's the view name. So if we proceeded to the urls.py, we will be referencing to these names. Okay, not the name of your functions. Okay, it is referencing from the name from your path. Okay, so I'll be having here, of course, index, because index contains all the output. What we needed to do is to have this view be accessible by your form. So how do we do that? How can we tell our form, hey form, I want you to access this view? How? Remember, it will always be via a path. Okay, so we need to add a path here, a new path. For the route name, I think it could be anything, but I would suggest to name it something that you would easily understand. But we will no longer use that path. It's for references only. So views dot save student, and then this is important. We need to give a name. So I'll call this a save student. Now this name, we'll add that to our form on its action. Now use URL and then save student. Now this should work. Okay. Let's go back. Let's try to add. So save record. As you can see, we have added Ashley Duke. Let's try to add one more. Let's try to add a fifth name. So let's say number 5. I'm just using any number here. I think we'll not have any confusion because the student number on our case, we have not made it as our primary key. So let me add another name. Let's say I'll use his name, one of my former players. To save record, we have this one. Okay,